Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marianakebaso and I recently took my MCAT and I got my score back. So for those of you who are curious, this is what I got. I got a 512 and I'm very proud of my score. So I wanted to share a video talking about things that I would do differently if I had to retake and kind of just what I wish I knew if anyone is getting started in their MCAT journey, or maybe you're studying for the test right now and you're kind of not sure what you're doing, or you just want to hear something from someone who's been there, done that. So this video is that. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the video. So in general, most people divide their studying for the MCAT into 3 phases. So the content review phase, the practice phase, and then the AMC phase, which AMC is just the American Medical College, whatever. They're the people who administer the test and they have their own material that they've created for the MCAT that's very helpful. We'll get into more of that later. But I am here to kind of dispel some things that I think were not helpful for me and they might not be helpful for you. So we'll start. So my first tip is to ditch the content review books. So generally, like I said, in that first phase of studying, which people refer to as content review, when people are reviewing content that they've learned in their previous science classes, non-science classes, they will read a textbook like Kaplan. UWorld came out with textbooks. Princeton Review, exam crackers used to be big, but they've kind of fallen off a little bit. That's generally how most people started their studying, is just by reading those books, and sometimes some people would also take notes on those books. But I found that I spent a lot of time, because I was studying part-time, I spent like 2 months on just content review where I didn't really touch many practice questions, and I feel like that was a waste of my study time. If I had started questions from day one, that would have been so much more helpful, I feel like, in my journey, because content review, at least for me, never stopped. Like even when I got into my practice phase, even when I got into my AMC phase, like I was still constantly learning things, and like every day was a day for me to get better at something that I'm already good at, or just reinforce something that I haven't seen in a while to make sure that I don't get it wrong again. And I feel like content review books are just, they're not the best way of studying. Like even for your classes, for my classes personally, I don't study by just reading the textbook. Like I'll read the textbook if I need to refer something, and even I have like physical Kaplan books and I had online Kaplan books, and never once after I finished my content review stage did I ever refer back to those books. And that's why I think that it's helpful to just ditch them and start doing practice immediately. And another thing you should start doing immediately is Anki. I was definitely very hesitant to like really get into Anki because it is very daunting and it's very intimidating at first, but spaced repetition is really what will help you for the MCAT, because the MCAT is a long test and the MCAT can test so much material. It's hard to just memorize everything that they want, and Anki kind of helps you, at least maybe you haven't memorized everything, but you're familiar with a lot of things just by doing Anki consistently. So if you haven't already started Anki, or you're thinking, should I do Anki, should I not? For most people in general, Anki is a great tool. Now some people don't like Anki, and if you cannot stick with Anki, do not start it. The thing about Anki is it's spaced repetition, right? It gives you a flashcard one day. If you get it right, it'll give it to you in a couple days. And if you get it right again, it'll give it to you in like 2 weeks, then a month, then whatever, and it keeps coming back to you, right? But if you're not coming back to Anki, you're not seeing the same cards over and over again, then you're not getting the value out of the system, out of the study tool. And do a deck that is manageable. So I started out using Jack Sparrow, and his deck is very dense and very intimidating. So I would honestly recommend doing a deck that is not as dense as Jack Sparrow. For everything, I do recommend his deck for the bio section, the biology and biochemistry section, because his cards on there, gold. I learned almost everything that I needed to know for that section from his deck. But his other decks are very dense and very long, and it'll just be hard to get through. You know, when you open Anki and you see you have 800 cards to do today, you don't want to do it. So do a deck that is not going to be as bad, and something that you know you'll be able to keep up with. So there's plenty of decks out there online. I hate to say it, but Reddit is a great resource if you're studying for the MCAT. If you can read on what millions of people have done to study for the MCAT, and you can find a lot of Anki decks. The most popular are like Miles Down, Jack Sparrow. Aiden's deck has become really popular, but that's even longer and more tedious than Jack Sparrow. And then what's another deck that's really popular? Mr. Panko is really popular for Psych Soch, and I'd definitely recommend that you do that deck. I did that deck. I started it way late. I started it like November November or December when I took my test in March. So I only got like 3-4 months with that deck, but it was so helpful for Psych Soc. And I didn't even finish Mr. Panko. I think there was one section like 7A or 7B that I didn't even really get to do, but I did watch all the Kaplan Psych Soc videos. So actually, this is kind of jumping back to my last tip, but for content review, I actually really liked the Khan Academy videos. At first, I was hesitant to kind of get into them because they're a lot and it feels like, am I gonna have time to really watch all of these? But I think that they're actually a great way to do content review. Like maybe I'm just more of a visual learner, which is why the textbooks just don't appeal to me. Just to hear the material, see the material, you're not just reading it, you're hearing it, you're seeing it. And it also has practice problems embedded into every like topic. So you can do practice problems, watch the videos, do practice problems, watch the videos, or like skip over things that you're kind of like A+ on, you know, like if you just learned about glycolysis and biochem, maybe you don't need to watch the Khan Academy video on it because you already memorized it. I guess that's another tip I'm thinking of on the spot is like tailor your content review. You know, some people have to review a lot at everything, you know, 5 years out of undergrad and you're just starting your prereqs, you might have to review more than someone who is still in college and you're a junior in college and you're actively learning or just learned all of the stuff that you're studying for the MCAT. You don't have to do as much content review if you really know your stuff. And so that's a tip for tip on tip on tip, but that's a tip for anyone who's watching this video and maybe you're not yet studying for the MCAT, but really the best way you can set yourself up for success for the MCAT is doing well, and not just doing well, but actually learning and understanding the material in your undergraduate classes, because it all comes back. General Chemistry 1, General Chemistry 2, Organic Chemistry 1, Organic Chemistry 2, and not so much. Biochemistry, Biology 1, Biology 2, Anatomy, Physiology, Physics 1, Physics 2, Intro to Psychology, Intro to Sociology. So you can set yourself up for success by just doing well and actually learning in all of your undergraduate classes, because that will help you when it comes to studying for the MCAT tremendously. I cannot stress that enough. But anyways, moving along. Do practice problems. So like this is my biggest tip. Like just do as many practice problems as you can. And it's not just about doing them, but it's also about reviewing them thoroughly. So that kind of goes into my next tip, which is to review everything that you do thoroughly. So when you do a set of practice problems, it can be 20 questions, 30, 40, 50, even 60 if you've kind of gotten into the rhythm. After you finish a set, it can either be that same day, later that day, or the next day. Review the problems. And it's not just reviewing what you got wrong. When I was reviewing problems, I would literally go in and look at the problem, especially for UWorld. Can I answer this question right now, right here, with what I know? I no internet, no resources, no nothing, no calculator, because you don't have a calculator on the MCAT. So in your practice, you have to start getting used to doing math and things like that without a calculator. And I would try to solve this problem and see if I could get to the right answer while reviewing. Like this is me reviewing, right? And then I'd see, oh, did I get the same answer? Oh, did I miss a step here and there? And that's why I really like UWorld. I highly recommend it. Highly. It is the one resource that I would recommend that every pre-med buy apart from AMC material, because UWorld their problems are hard. Their problems are hard and you will be humbled. I was getting like 45s, 30, 60, maybe on a good day a 70 or an 80 or even a 90%. But you want to be humbled when you're actually practicing and getting ready for the test. You don't want to be humbled when you get your score back and you didn't do as well as you thought because you were tested on concepts you didn't get to study as heavily. So UWorld test has practice problems on every subject area that's covered in the MCAT. Most people recommend to ignore UWorld cars. So I started doing it, but then I never finished it. But I did finish all of UWorld's Psych Soc questions, although I didn't finish any other section, and I wish I did. I wish I had finished UWorld Bio, UWorld Chem Phys, because it's just invaluable. All that practice, and like I said, with the practice and the review, making sure that if you got a question wrong, you'll never get it wrong again, and you really instill this concept into you. And for the questions you got right, making sure you got them right because you know it and not just because you guessed or on a fluke or something like that. Those are all important. So practice, and review. And then the next tip I have is to not start AMC material too early. So I also did a Kaplan prep course. My school paid for it, so I did not have to pay for it, thank God. But they had us start by, like, our diagnostic was an AMC test. And I just think that you should not, no. Your diagnostic should be a free third-party test. The Blueprint half-length diagnostic is one that many people use, but Kaplan offers, I think, 2 or 3 free practice exams, full-length practice exams. There's other test prep companies that offer free full-length exams. Start with one of theirs. Acknowledge that there might be some grade inflation or grade deflation with these third-party companies, but starting with an AMC test I just think is not the greatest. It's not the greatest because I just felt like it's so demoralizing to see my score that I got at first. So I started my prep with a 489 on my first ever AMC exam, but this was before I had really done any serious studying. I had just started reading the Kaplan books. I hadn't done any practice problems or anything like that. So this was like, I didn't know anything about the MCAT or how to study for it or how to answer questions or how to kind of process of elimination your way to the right answer. So it was bad, and I don't recommend that you start AMC material super early. I think the best thing is to start AMC material if you're studying full-time 1 month out, if you're studying part-time like I did 2 months out. And the next tip I have is to not get discouraged by setbacks, or if you drop in points on a practice exam, or if you're doing really badly at UWorld or practice problems. Oh, another resource I forgot to mention that I wanted to is Jack Weston. Jack Weston has so many free practice problems. I think they just even released more, like they have like 6,000 or something. And I did some of their practice problem sets, especially for cars. I did some of theirs, but I also did their practice questions for Psych Soc and a few of their passages, Bio and Chem Phys. And they're really good actually, and it's a free resource. Like, you don't have to pay. All you have to do is create an account and you have access to their resources. And I actually really liked their questions, so I think it's a great free resource that maybe if you're not willing or you can't afford UWorld, which is, I understand that's a reality for some people, Jack Weston is a great resource. I know Kaplan has their own question bank, but I'm pretty sure you have to pay for that. Who else has a question bank? I think those are like the main ones, like Kaplan, UWorld, and Jack Weston for question banks, where they're mainly passage-based questions, and that's where you'll get the best practice, because single questions, there's only so many single questions, or what we call discrete questions. So you want to get comfortable with having to read a passage and then answer questions related to that passage very early on in your study. You don't want to wait and be starting passage-based questions, 2 months before your test. That's not ideal. It's not ideal, in my opinion, at least. But like, don't be discouraged by if you're going down 1 week or you're just having a bad week. It's okay. It's okay. And in the end, like, if you are continually putting in the work day in, day out, you will see the results. You will see the results when you get your score back. It's just the truth. I definitely went down, and it was a little demoralizing when I actually started AMC material. So I had never been having like any downward trajectory. When I was doing my practice full lengths from Kaplan, I was actually steadily increasing, which was very moralizing and very nice to see that like my hard work was paying off. But then when I started AMC material, I started off strong, and then my second and third practice exams were kind of a downward slope, and I was like, oh my god, wait, was like the first test a fluke? Because Kaplan, the test prep course, had made us do that first test for practice in the beginning. I was like, oh, did I remember so many questions subconsciously, and that's why I got a good score? I didn't feel like that was the case, but I was kept on going down on my second exam, my third pregnancy. I was like, oh my god. But then the fourth and fifth, it gets better. And like, just don't take every day, day by day, and just do your best for this exam. And then the last tip that I have is to track your progress weekly by making a plan ahead of time and trying your best to stick with it, but if needed, adjust. So sometimes, and myself included, I am very guilty of making very like lofty plans and just not hitting that mark because I overestimated how much time I could commit to studying that week, or I just had so many other responsibilities. Because for me, I studied part-time while doing school for majority of my study time. So for me, school was always a priority, because the MCAT you can retake, but your GPA is forever. Improving your GPA after you've gotten like a C in a course means you have to get an A in that same course later. Hard. And even then, it's not like your GPA forgets that C. It's still included in your GPA. It's just balanced out by that A, right? So my priority was always my GPA and school and all the other responsibilities in my life. I'm an older sister, okay? I like to cook, and I tried to maintain a semblance of a life while I was studying. I wasn't going out every weekend, but I did see my friends occasionally, and I did go out, and I did have fun times throughout my part-time studying journey. But that's why it's important to have like a broader, larger scale plan, but one that you're adding updates, you're tweaking, you're saying, okay, I have more time this week, oh, I'm on break, we have Thanksgiving this week, or for people who are studying over the summer, it's summer break, so you might have way more time to study. And also seeing how much time you can actually devote in a day. Some people, they can only study like 4 to 6 hours in a day. Other people can go for 10 to 16 hours in a day and not feel it. So you have to learn yourself and know how much you can actually commit in a day and productive, because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I'm going to study for 12 hours on paper, and it's a whole nother thing to actually have 12 hours of dedicated, focused, productive study. So yeah, make a plan, but don't be afraid to adjust it if needed. And yeah, I have so many more tips, but in general, those are the tips that I would say for like if you're trying to study for the exam and what I would have done differently. And yeah, just know that you got this, and you are so capable, and I believe in you. And if I could do it part-time, you can do it. And I hope this was helpful, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer. I respond to every single comment, and thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you guys next week. Bye!